Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2023 NFL Week 1 predictions. Well, after 7 long months from my last video, when I reviewed Super Bowl 57, I am back, just like I said I would be, on September 4th, doing another year of NFL predictions. I'm extremely excited that the football season, both college and pro, have come back around, and it's a lot more fun and a lot of new variables with talents and free agency and retirements that will make this season an incredibly fun season to predict and talk about with all my viewers out there, all returning and new ones. I appreciate you for the last several years watching me as I've done predictions on this channel for the past 10 years. I am ecstatic to do it again. And as I always say at the beginning of every year, if you don't like my opinions about certain teams or my predictions, or have non-constructive, critical thoughts about my picks or anything like that, you can make your own stuff. You can make your own content, and you can produce your own opinions. That's the great thing about this platform, or especially with sports, that everybody can, if they have a camera, they can make their base and create their own opinions. So, once again, I'm all for having conversations with my fans, with comments and just stuff like that. But if you have nothing constructive or nice to say, make your own stuff or find somebody else to watch, because there's somebody out in this YouTube world that probably has your opinions that you appreciate that they agree with you. So, but I am happy to be back. Before I get into my picks, once again, I know when I did my last video over the last few years, I gave a Super Bowl 58 prediction, and I remember when I did this last year, I updated it I updated the prediction one year where I put the Bucs in the Super Bowl. This year, I had Chiefs-Eagles going into it, and nothing really has changed through the offseason that would make me decide to change my mind again. So once again, I am going to stick with the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Philadelphia Eagles in a rematch for the first time since the 92-93 seasons with the Cowboys and Bills as my Super Bowl 58 prediction on February 7th, 2024 at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. So, alright. And I will talk about all the offseason stuff through my picks, let me get straight into the picks for this season. Boy, am I excited. Alright. So this Thursday, September 7th, opening night of the year, you are going to have the Detroit Lions, the darlings of the NFC through the second half of last year, went 8-2 in their final 10 games, had a winning record for the first time since 2017, and for a lot of people, shout out to Half Moon's Picks, one of the other great prognosticators, go check out his videos as well, that for the first time in 30 years, the Lions are favored to win the NFC North, and I have the Lions winning the North as well. They are going to Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions. 2 rings in 3 years, 3 appearances in 4. They are trying to become the next dynasty in football behind the New England Patriots one. And if they win the title this year, I do think they will achieve that status. The Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites in this game, and with everything involved, I am still going to take the Kansas City Chiefs here, minus 6.5, and the Kansas City Chiefs straight up. Then on Sunday, September 10th, for the first full Sunday of the NFL season, we have the Carolina Panthers traveling to Atlanta to play the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are 3.5-point favorites in this game. These are 2 very young squads, with Atlanta trying to build with Desmond Ridder, Jesse Bates, Calais Campbell, getting Kyle Pitts back. They have Drake London. They just paid their guard, Chris Lindstrom, to be the highest guard in football. They still have Jake Matthews. They have Bijan Robinson, highly touted first-round pick. Like, this Falcons team this year, I was really down on the Falcons last year. This Falcons team, in that division, they can hang around, and if they won it, it wouldn't be shocking. But it wouldn't be shocking if the Falcons won this division with the talent they have, and that also depends on second-year quarterback Desmond Ridder. The Panthers are going in with first overall pick Bryce Young in the draft this year, along with Frank Reich, the new coach, former Colts coach, former Eagles offensive coordinator, former Chargers offensive coordinator. So in this game, Carolina versus Atlanta. Atlanta is a 3.5-point favorite in this game. I am going to take Atlanta here to win straight up, but give me the Carolina Panthers plus 3.5. Then the next game, when the Cincinnati Bengals travel to Cleveland, take on the Cleveland Browns in the Battle of Ohio. The Cincinnati Bengals are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Cincinnati here minus 2.5, and Cincinnati straight up. Then the next game, when the Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Indianapolis to take on the Indianapolis Colts. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 5-point favorites in this game. Give me Jacksonville here minus 5, and Jacksonville straight up. Then the next game, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Minnesota and US Bank Stadium to take on the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are 6-point favorites in this game. Give me the Minnesota Vikings here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Tampa Bay here on the line, plus 6. Then the next game, when the Tennessee Titans travel to New Orleans, take on the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me New Orleans here minus 3, and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the San Francisco 49ers travel all the way out to the East Coast to go to Acrisure Stadium to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The San Francisco 49ers are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here minus 2.5, and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the Arizona Cardinals, who are tanking for Caleb Williams, and no one can else question me otherwise, go to Washington. As they travel across the country to take on the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me the Washington Commanders here minus 7, and the Washington Commanders straight up. Then the next game, to end the 1 o'clock slate, when the Houston Texans and rookie C.J. Stroud travel to Baltimore to take on the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 10-point favorites in this game. This was a really tough game on the spread to pick, because that's a big number. And I think Houston, from what I've seen in their offseason with getting D'Amico Ryans, getting C.J. Stroud, getting Will Anderson, getting Dalton Schultz, getting these additions and building this roster up in a good way, re-signing Larry Tunsil, Titus Howard, that they're solidifying the offensive line. I have problems with the ownership, but that's not the topic for here or there. But, what they're doing, they're starting to build up in the right direction. But I think, going into Baltimore, and not being a homer on the spread here, I just think, I think Baltimore should easily win this game. John Harbaugh in his career has only lost to one rookie in Baltimore, and that was to Kenny Pickett last year with Tyler Huntley quarterback and not Lamar. So the Baltimore Ravens here are 10-point favorites. I'm going to take Baltimore here minus 10 and Baltimore straight up. However, I would tell anybody out there, if Houston's able to cover that 10 points, I'm not going to be that surprised, because when I saw it in that third game against the Saints, I know it was against backups and all that, Houston can hang around. Houston could be a little bit natty, if you will. That they can, be a bit of a gnat. They can hang around. If they cover that 10 points, I'm not going to be that surprised. So, I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens here minus 10, Baltimore Ravens straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers are going to Chicago. The oldest rivalry in the NFL gets renewed once again. And it's very unique this time around because you have the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, both young quarterbacks. No Favre, no Rodgers, no Luckman, no Grossman, no McMahon, no 85 Bears defense. This Bears-Packers rivalry feels completely reset with these two current rosters. Aaron Rodgers, for Bears fans, no longer has to own him for this 12-5 record against the Bears, or 12-5 or 13-5 record. But the Chicago Bears, they are 1-point favorites in this game, so this is essentially a pick-em against the Packers. I'm going to take Chicago here minus 1, and Chicago straight up. Then the next game, the Sean Payton era begins in Denver as the Las Vegas Raiders travel to Denver to take on the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Denver here straight up, but I am so nervous with everything that's going on in Denver, with the offensive line, Russ's inconsistencies, Russell Wilson's horrible year last year, the wide receiver injuries, Javonte Williams coming back off an ACL himself. I'm going to take the Raiders here plus 3.5, just to be safe, and just because I'm like, the Raiders, if you watch them in the preseason, they were one of the highest scoring offenses in the league in the preseason with Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell. Who, by the way, if Jimmy gets hurt, and he went through the whole thing with Brock Purdy last year, and, the whole Brady thing, don't be surprised if Jimmy Garoppolo, if or when he gets hurt, that Aiden O'Connell, the former Purdue quarterback, replaces him and is the starting quarterback for the Raiders moving forward. And then the Raiders are going to have to try to trade Jimmy, or they have the most expensive backup in NFL history, or one of them. So, But that's why I like the Denver Broncos here to win straight up with the Las Vegas Raiders plus 3.5. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending NFC champions, travel to New England to take on the New England Patriots on Tom Brady Day. And the Philadelphia Eagles are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here -4 and Philadelphia straight up. Then the next game, probably the most impactful game of the week, just in terms of long-term ramifications. The Miami Dolphins are traveling out to SoFi Stadium to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. And knowing the Charger Stadium, that means that probably there's going to be about 65% Dolphin fans and 35% Charger fans. Any Charger fans out there? Sorry for the shot, but it's pretty true. So, but the Miami Dolphins are going to Los Angeles to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers here -3 and the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. Then the next game, the other LA team, the Los Angeles Rams, are traveling to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are 5.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams plus 5.5 against the spread in this scenario. So once again, I'm taking Seattle straight up, but give me the Los Angeles Rams plus 5.5. Then the next game, when the Dallas Cowboys take on the New York Giants, America's favorite, this team / roller coaster / disaster, Dallas Cowboys, going to New York to take on the New York Giants. The Dallas Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Dallas here -3.5 and Dallas straight up. And then finally, the Monday night game, the New York Jet debut of a former Packer great. What could possibly go wrong for the Jets? It's not like they did this before. Oh, wait, they did with Brett Favre. And I know Aaron's playing better than Favre at this point, but that's what it feels like. But the Buffalo Bills are going to New York. Prime time, glitz and glam, MetLife Stadium. The Bills are going to the Jets. The Bills are actually 2.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Buffalo here -2.5 and Buffalo straight up. If that was anything over 3 or 4 to 5, I would have taken the Jets on the spread. But if I can get the field goal, I think the Bills can win by a field goal, even with all the stuff that's going on. So once again, I have Buffalo here -2.5 and Buffalo straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Kansas City Chiefs over the Detroit Lions. This one, it's basically, to me, where it's Patrick Mahomes. Look, this man is the greatest quarterback playing today. He's the best quarterback in the league today. They pretty much, besides Juju, which is a big loss, they lost Juju. They have Justin Ross, they have Justin Watson, they still have Travis Kelce. The offensive line's still pretty much intact, though they did bring in Jawan Taylor from the Jaguars, which I thought was a good pickup. And it's just something where you just have to trust the Chiefs in this spot. Usually when Mahomes plays in week one, he's never lost a week one, I believe. And for the Lions, they're really good, and they added David Montgomery, they added Jamar Gibbs from the draft, they added Sam Laporta from Iowa. You have Jared Goff, who's coming off a very good year. In my opinion, he's the third best quarterback in the NFC right now. And, you have other weapons like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's going to have another year. Aiden Hutchinson, who was a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate. They brought in Emmanuel Mosby, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They still have Penei Sewell on the offensive line. They still have Frank Ragnarok. They still have a very good roster, and Dan Campbell is a very good motivational leader. But at the end of the day, I just think the Chiefs, they know how to win. And I'm not sold on Lions defense enough that I think the Chiefs offensive line can hold. And I just don't think with the Chris Jones, and this is even with Chris Jones holding out, and I do not believe he will play up to Week 8 because legally from his contract, that's what he can do till before he will lose his free agency rights in next year. So I do think that he will be at the next 7 games. And I do think if you took the Lions on the line for that reason, just because they would use Montgomery and Gibbs based on that hole in the middle, I would completely buy that. But I just think with the Chiefs, they have a very good, running system. Mahomes is well rested, and if you just told me the Chiefs, with the talent they have, even with the additions they have, they still have Kelce, they still have Mahomes, they still have Reed, they still have the offensive advantage, and I'm just not sold on the Lions enough defensively. I don't think if they can score enough points, I don't think the Lions defense can hold them out in a shootout. And you're going to give me Mahomes and go off in a shootout, I'm going to take Mahomes in that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And also not having Jameson Williams for 6 games due to his gambling suspension is really big, because I do think against that questionable Chiefs secondary, his deep threat ability would have been massive in this game to help alleviate or help put more pressure on a Chiefs defense that's going to be weakened by not having their best overall player, Chris Jones, out there. So, should be a great game. And honestly, I would have put the Philadelphia Eagles in the spot. I know they're playing them Week 12 Monday Night Football, but I would have put the Eagles in here. The game was so good. Start the year off with the opener. They did this back in 2015, 2016 with Broncos Panthers. I would have done it here, but the Lions, I think, will play their hearts out. I think they'll put up a good effort. But I think at the end of the day, the Chiefs are just too strong with Mahomes. Their line will hold up enough to give Mahomes enough time. And I think the Lions defense can't hold the Chiefs offense enough to get turnovers to win this game. So that's why I like Kansas City here minus 6.5. I can't say straight up. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Carolina Panthers. I am taking the Atlanta Falcons here based on the fact that I watched the Panthers this preseason. And yeah, they have some young talent. They have some good veterans. They brought in Miles Sanders from Philadelphia. They brought in Adam Thielen, DJ Chark. They have Ian Thomas. They still have Gross, or I know I screwed up his name. The guy passer from Penn State. They still have Derek Brown. They still have Brian Burns, very good defensive. J.C. Horn. They still have Chin. They still have some good defensive pieces and good offensive skill positions. And they have the real quarterback. But that offensive line is just dreadful. And I just can't trust that. Like, Atlanta, I think Carolina, they have pieces and they have a better system. Like, I trust their coaching staff more than Atlanta's. I trust Bryce Young to have a brighter ceiling than Desmond Ridder. I trust, the Panthers having, better secondary guys. I know the Falcons have a good defensive piece themselves. And great, they have AJ Terrell. They have Jesse Bates. They have, I'm drawing a blank on the other safety, but they have guys like Grady Jarrett. They have Calais coming in there. They have good defenders. They brought in the guy from New Orleans, Onyemata. There we go, David Onyemata. Like, they have good pieces, but I trust the Panthers' upside. But after just watching those preseason games and watching Bryce Young just get absolutely obliterated, I'm like, okay, in this game with kind of similar rosters, similar young quarterbacks, I think what's going to be the difference? I think it's going to be the offensive line. And I think Atlanta's going to be able to generate a good enough rush that Bryce Young is going to be running around for his life. And I just think Atlanta, Desmond Ridder, who's effective, and again, he did okay. He's not Kenny Pickett or Brock Purdy from his class, but he's not Malik Willis. So, it's a low bar, but, I think Desmond Ridder, he's also never lost a home game. So, putting him at home, that kind of helps. I'm going to trust Atlanta being able to be efficient and be able to make some plays and give the Panthers more time, and I think that's going to be the key difference in the game. Could Carolina win? Sure. The offensive line somehow just magically gelled together, and, Bryce can make some throws and have some time and make some of the magical plays like he had at Alabama. Yeah, sure. I do think for Bryce and them, they could win, but just knowing what I've seen from additions and the preseason, I have to go with the Atlanta Falcons here. More experienced, better defensive line, and a better offensive line to protect the quarterbacks. And if it comes down to a kicking battle, I'll take Koo and that staff over the Panthers special team staff and their kickers. So that's why I like Atlanta here to win straight up. I give you the Carolina Panthers plus 3.5. The next game, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Cleveland Browns. This game, to me, the Cincinnati Bengals should win this football game based on that. I just love what the Bengals have done. They still have the receiving core together. I get the points about the safeties and losing Vaughn and Jesse to the Panthers and Falcons respectively. That's not good. They do have Daxton Hill and they do have Mike Hilton still, and they have some good, they have some young pieces. The offensive line really did improve by getting Orlando Brown, former Raven, former Chief, to come onto the left side. Though he didn't really screw himself out of money, but that's a completely different conversation for a different day. But the Bengals, I feel like, just still have a very solid overall roster. They still have Hubbard. They still have Hendrickson, who they gave an extension to. They still have DJ Reader. They still have a quality defense with Lou Anarama, who still has not been taken, which is kind of amazing just due to the quality of work he's done over the last few years. I actually think the Bengals are in a better spot. Okay? And look, I know the counterpoint would be, look at the history of Joe Burrow against the Browns. I get that. And, if it was a higher number, I probably would have taken Cleveland on the spread. But it's just something to where, the Browns last year, did it with Jacoby, and I get all that. But I just don't know with Deshaun. Deshaun, he's had the full offseason now, and he did look very good against the Chiefs in the preseason finale. I did see that. He looked very good, but both defenses were playing completely awful that game, so I don't know how much stock you can take in either one of those. But the Browns were, the Bengals-Browns game, I'm just going to trust Joe's. He's not going to put himself in a spot that he's going to look as nearly as bad as he did against the Steelers. Because the same exact thing happened last year when he had the appendectomy, where he didn't play the whole preseason. And he looked absolutely awful. And they almost won that game, even after Joe Burrow threw 5 turnovers. I'm not saying he's going to have a clean game, because usually against Cleveland, Myles Garrett always gets to him once or twice and forces 1 incompletion or 1 turnover. That basically helps, keep the Browns in the game. But I think getting Orlando Brown will help alleviate that pressure. And I just feel like Joe Burrow, he's been able to at least practice for a couple weeks now. He should be good enough that I feel like if the Bengals and Browns play the types of game that I expect them to, the Browns defense, it lost a couple assets, and it lost, but it still has some other good assets. Getting Zadarius Smith on the other side is very good. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take Joe Burrow to outplay Deshaun Watson in a big game, like he did last year in the second game they played against him. So it should be a great game. And again, if the Browns win, I wouldn't be that surprised. But I definitely think for everybody out there, and this might be a hot take for some people, Deshaun Watson and the concept of mid, if he loses, because he played Steelers the week after, that mid word for Deshaun Watson as a professional quarterback, now whatever you think personally, that's your own opinions. The word mid and Deshaun Watson, if he loses this game, will have to start being discussed. Because he's making $230 fully guaranteed million, and he's only won 7 games going into 3 seasons over a 4-year span. So, and this time all the Deshaun defenders can't say, well, he had circumstances. He had circumstances, No, he's had a full offseason just like everybody else. If everybody believes in Deshaun Watson, he should be able to compete and win this game. If not, or if he looks bad, that mid word will have to start coming into play. That's just for me. So that's all like Cincinnati here, -2.5. And Cincinnati straight up. The next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Indianapolis Colts. This one is fairly easy. Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars really didn't make a lot of big offseason moves. They didn't have to. They re-signed Evan Ingram. They re-signed Roy Robertson Harris. They're bringing in Calvin Ridley. This Jaguars team, I think, full top down, you can make an argument they are the number 1 seed in the AFC. You can make that argument, and I could actually understand that, because it's based off the fact of, it's not because they're the best team, but they probably have the best schedule out of anybody in the conference. They can get the most wins out of their schedule compared to other teams. They play the AFC South, the NFC South, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and KC. So it's like, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. So, in Indianapolis, Indianapolis has been a train wreck. This is their 7th quarterback in 7 years, starting for them. Anthony Richardson, 3rd overall pick from the University of Florida. Very talented, intangible individual. Great dude as a person. Just don't know if he can play I get it if he was doing well enough because he was going up against Gardner Minshew. And Steichen just got there, so I can understand putting him in there. But boy, after what I saw out of the Eagles game, that's 6 passes. And that's, again, just for everybody out there. Did you watch that? He completed 6 passes against the Eagles defense. They still won the game, but again, it's pretty. But I'm like, he's got to complete more than 6 passes against the Jaguars this Sunday in order to win. And I just, and with no Jonathan Taylor, no Kenyon Drake, I think Deion Jackson's their backup running back. Michael Pittman's their number 1 receiver. Like, this is just going to be an absolute thrashing. The only thing I would say is, can the Colts offensive line, with Ryan Kelly, with Quentin Nelson, with Braden Smith, very much what they put their foundation into the team, can it play better? Because if it plays like it did last year, for Anthony Richardson, that man is going to get killed or hurt by week 8 with how bad they were playing. If they can protect him a bit, they will have a chance to make some noise, in my opinion. But, or they will make it, or no, they make some noise. They will make it a better game than people would think. I don't know if that's going to happen, but just with everything going on, no Taylor, very lack of offense, Mo Alley Cox and the other Alec Pierce at tight end. You are going to get Shaq Leonard back, which would be nice, but I don't think that's going to be enough. They lost Gilmore to the Cowboys. This Colts team is going to be near the bottom of the division. Actually, they're going to finish last in the division. But it's all for the Colts saying, what can we see out of Richardson that we can translate and promise into next year? So, could Indy make it competitive? Maybe, if that offensive line holds up. I don't think it will. I think Jacksonville wins this game comfortably based off all the reasons I just said. So give me Jacksonville at -5 and Jacksonville straight up. Next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is one to where, man, this game is very interesting because you can make a point that with Baker Mayfield, former Panther, former Ram, former Brown, he's got the most offensive skill positions around him that he's ever had in Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller. I'm trying to think of the other. Well, Russell Gage out with an injury, but they have Kate Otten. They have an okay time. The offensive line is also going to be the other issue because they lost Ryan Jensen for the year due to the knee issue he had last year. Still having complications. And the defense, for the most part, is still pretty much intact, though Devin White's probably on his way out due to a contract dispute. And Mike Evans, after this year, is probably on his way out as well. Tampa's got, if Baker can play up to what people believe in Baker, he's got a chance to win this game against a very suspect Vikings defense that lost a lot of key assets due to trades and salary cap. They also lost Dalvin Cook on the offensive side of the ball. They moved on from their tight ends. Even though Kyle Rudolph, former great Viking, former great Buccaneer, he retired. Best of luck to his career. Kind of an average tight end, maybe a bit underrated. But he had a good career. He played 12 years, and good for him at Notre Dame. Also, good job for Notre Dame for blowing out the last 2 opponents. But sidebar there. But Tampa Bay, Minnesota, this is really tough because I trust the Bucs offense enough that they can score on the Vikings defense. But there's just this part of me going, I think the Vikings, they have Harrison Smith still there. They have Danielle Hunter. They have other key defensive contributors that I think will kind of flourish. And they have Brian Flores, who should improve defense. And at the end of the day, if you're going to give me Kirk and Baker and tight games, I'm going to take the quarterback that has a little bit of a better track record, and that's Kirk Cousins to win this game. He had one of his better years. He was in the top 50 in the NFL top 100. He was a tier 2 quarterback from the Athletic poll. And in this game, I think Kirk at home is able to outperform Baker in a very interesting and talented shootout. I feel like for either team, there's more pressure on Tampa because Minnesota's kind of on the waning back end of their, ride with Cousins. They basically moved some of his money around to extend him or to basically create cap space. And then after this year, I believe they'll be trying to get another quarterback. Who that is, we don't know. But I do think that the Vikings are kind of on the back end where Tampa is trying to basically thrive in a spot to where they had Tom Brady for, last 3 years, won 3 division titles, won 5 playoff games, and now they have Baker, and it's just like, okay, and Todd Bowles is fighting for his job. And it's like, for Tampa, the win would be more than Minnesota, because Minnesota beating Tampa, it's like, okay, you expected it, but it's just kind of like, meh, Tampa was kind of a mid-team anyway. So, but I'm just because of that difference, I'm going to give Tampa the 6 points, because I feel like Baker and Kirk can get into this unique shootout with the weapons they have on both offensive sides of the ball. So, but I'm gonna in those situations now, I'm gonna take the better quarterback, and that's Kirk. So that's all, like Minnesota here to win straight up. Tampa Bay +6. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans, the best thing they did was they re-signed Jeffrey Simmons. That's it, and he earned his deal. But everything else Titans did, their receivers are lacking. Or getting DeAndre will help. But Tanny's coming. Ryan Tannehill, Tanny as I like to call him, is coming off an injury. Derrick Henry's a year older. They really didn't improve their offensive line that much. I feel bad for one of their corners, Caleb Farley, because his house exploded from a gas leak, and his father passed away, unfortunately, tragically, from that incident. So I do feel bad for him and his family and all that went on there. But this Titans team is not very good. Like, they should be second in the AFC South, but I feel like that's a testament to how bad the AFC South is compared to how good Tennessee is. And New Orleans, they keep moving the NFL Ponzi scheme. That's the thing I'll give them. They have the NFL Ponzi scheme on lock. They know how to move money and just keep moving it down the cap road for the next year, for the next year, for the next year, for the next year. But they were able to get Derek Carr. They hopefully got Michael Thomas back for another year. They got him on a one-year contract. They have Chris Olave. They brought Cameron Jordan, who's going to be the same for life there. They have Marshawn Lattimore. They have Ramczyk. They have Penning, who should be able to recover from his foot injury and play well. They have Ruiz. Like, they have a good enough roster that I feel like they are the clear favorite for the South. But again, I feel like that's basically like the NFC South this year. It's like you were the best of the worst. That, in the NFC, the Saints I don't think compete against the Cowboys. I don't think they compete against the Lions. I don't think they compete against the Niners or the Eagles at all. But out of those four teams in that division, I feel like the Saints are the most well-constructed out of there. The only two things I don't like about them, ironically, the two most important, their coach and their quarterback. I thought Derek Carr got exorbitantly overpaid for his lack of production in Oakland, or Oakland/Vegas, where he got benched, and Jared Stidham put up a better effort against the Niners than Derek Carr could. And that was the Niners defense last year. That wasn't Derek Carr who did that. That was Jared Stidham. So, I think the Raiders, it's not going to be the end of the world with Derek Carr not there. And with the Saints, they'll improve, but it's not going to be the high that people in the Saints think it's going to be. He's not Drew Brees or anything like that. He can't even really sniff Drew Brees' jock. But that's just me. But I'm going to take the Saints here just because, you're going into that Superdome, completely new roster, completely confidence. I trust it. If they limit Derrick Henry and Lattimore can do a good enough job on an aging DeAndre Hopkins, you beat the Titans. I trust that Saints defensive line to hold Derrick Henry enough, and I trust Lattimore to hold DeAndre Hopkins enough. You stop those two weapons, you beat the Tennessee Titans. Simple as that. You stop two weapons, two guys on the offense, you've done enough. And I trust with the Saints offense that I think they can move on the kind of weak secondary of the Titans besides Farley and Byard. And I really couldn't name you any other Titans secondary members. Andrew Adams, he's really bad. But yeah, I just feel like the Saints, all they have to do is stop two people, Henry and Hopkins, shut those two guys down, you win the game. Or limit them, you win the game. Because the Titans really have nothing else inspiring offensively or defensively to tell you that they're going to be able to win this game against a respectable Saints team. I'm not going to be Adam Shine and tell them they're going to win, win the number one seed in the NFC. That's asinine. Say that. So, but that's why I like New Orleans here -3, New Orleans straight up. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, this is a very interesting game. It's probably out of the 1 o'clock slate, the biggest draw of the week. Not based on the play, but just the brand. San Francisco, Pittsburgh, 11 Super Bowls, 2 of the great fan bases. Black and gold. Red and gold, or black and yellow, red and gold. West Coast flair, Pittsburgh tough. It writes itself. But I'm taking San Francisco here based on the fact that I just trust what they have done. Okay? And I know everybody can, rip on them. And I love to rip on Kyle Shanahan a lot. Anybody who knows me. I love ripping on Shanahan. But San Fran, I feel like, they brought in Javon Hargrave. They have pretty much most of their core still there. I know McGlinchey is big, but I trust who they're going to put in that other spot. They have Christian McCaffrey. They have Brock Purdy, who I'm a believer in. I think this game will also tell people who is the best quarterback of the 2022 NFL draft class so far. Is it Brock Purdy or is it Kenny Pickett? And I think Brock Purdy is going to be better than Kenny Pickett. I know the Steelers, they brought in Allen Robinson, which was a good pickup. It was also good because they wanted to pay him $5 million, and he's probably going to be a number 2 wide receiver behind former second-round pick George Pickens, who is entering his second year. They're going to have T.J. Watt fully healthy. They brought in John Highsmith, and they brought in They brought in another linebacker who's going. They brought in Quan Alexander. I'm sorry. Yeah, they brought in Quan Alexander. So this defense is going to be very good and very solid. I'm just not sold on the offensive line, and I just think Kenny Pickett with the weapons in Kyle Shanahan's mind offensively, I think he'll be able to outdo Mike Tomlin enough defensively that I think that the offense beats the defense in this type of back and forth game, and I think Brock Purdy makes a few more plays than Kenny Pickett can against 2 very good defenses. The Nick Bosa factor will be significant. I'm not going to shy away from that. Anybody that hasn't known, Nick Bosa is holding out for a brand new contract, one that justifiably he rightfully deserves. But San Fran is in a bad spot with that. In my opinion, but I feel like against the Steelers, unless T.J. Watt wrecks the game, and I think Trent Williams will handle his business, I believe the 49ers should be able to make a few more defensive plays and a couple more offensive plays with Purdy's legs and his ability that they win this game in a fun interconference game that's probably the game of the 1 o'clock slate in terms of brand. I think the best game is going to be Bengals-Browns, but that's just me, but we'll see. But the Niners-Steelers are going to take the offensive and the better quarterback in this spot with the defense being able to push, and I'll trust the Niners' offensive line to protect a little bit better than Pittsburgh's. So we'll see though. But that's why I have San Francisco here -2.5 and San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Washington Commanders over the Arizona Cardinals. This one was fairly easy. The Arizona Cardinals are tanking. The Arizona Cardinals have lost basically every significant talented asset that they have besides Budda Baker, who they had to renegotiate a contract for them to come back into camp. They have Paris Johnson coming in as a tackle. They have Kyler Murray on the pup. They brought in Josh Dobbs and Clayton Tune, a journeyman who's never won a game, and Clayton Tune, a rookie. They have James Conner at running back. They traded away Isaiah Simmons. They made another trade of another player. They lost Byron Murphy. They have really no, Zach Ertz is coming off an ACL injury. Like, this Cardinals team really has no hope. And any Cardinal fan out there that's watching, sorry for being so harsh, but honestly, you could argue if you're going to trust the process, use the old Philadelphia line to, get Caleb Williams to come in. I think that would be the best thing because honestly, I think in the history of that franchise, he's probably the most talented quarterback the Cardinals will have ever had. Not the most successful or accomplished because that's still Kurt Warner. Or Warner and Palmer 1 and 2. But he's probably the most talented guy you've had. And I just feel like for the Cardinals, if they go 0-4 in their first 4, I am telling Kyler Murray, we are not putting you in the game. You are just going to sit, and there's no point in risking any more injury for a team that wasn't going anywhere anyway. And if Jonathan Gannon pulls a Hugh Jackson, pulls a Rod Marinelli, and goes 0-17, he deserves to be fired. Honestly, I think that might be the whole play. I would do that. If I were the Cardinals, and I can say, you're on your soapbox here, I would go 0-17, fire Jonathan Gannon, and bring in an offensive mind with the number 1 pick, because they have the Houston pick as well. I'm not going to be Nick Wright and say they're going to have a top 5 pick. I'm going to think the Cardinals are going to have 2 top 10 picks and the number 1 pick, bring an offensive-minded coach to pair with Caleb Williams, trade Kyler Murray for another good pick or 2, and then you have a whole new era and a whole new confidence building in Arizona that I don't think Jonathan Gannon will inspire. But we'll see. And again, Washington, look, their big story, of course, is their ownership. I am so happy Dan Snyder's out of the picture. It's now Josh Harris, who also owns the New Jersey Devils and the Philadelphia 76ers. So for Commander fans, they will gladly take the appreciation of moving up in the world from being an absolute doormat to being a mid-door contending doormat. So, because that's the history of Josh Harris. Winners. Josh Harris, to me, he's helped improve teams, but he hasn't built them all the way up. Josh Harris is a mid-owner. That's what he is. Josh Harris is a mid-owner that ever since the Devils and all that have gone around, I don't think either the Devils or the Sixers, ever since he's taken over ownership, they haven't even got out of the second round. For Commander fans, after the Snyder era, they will be happy with that run for a bit. But do I think Josh Harris and Magic Johnson in that group will win a championship? No, because every other Josh Harris entity that he has owned, he has not proven that he can do that either. Like I said, he will get the Commanders, I think, as far as the divisional round. And that's about it, because I feel like that's what Josh Harris's ownership always seems to do in all the sports that he owns teams in. But it's in a much better spot than the Commanders, because at least the Commanders have a very talented defense still. They have a quarterback in Sam Howell that through the preseason looks very sharp. And I just know with the Cardinals, this isn't like last year with the Jaguars where I was kind of nervous about taking the Jags against, the Commanders in week 1 of wins. This one I feel utterly confident in. Honestly, out of all the locks in the week, this might be the one with either Jacksonville and Indy. I feel like this is one of those 2 games that I'm putting a lock in easily. So, instead of like Washington here -7, Washington straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Houston Texans. John Harbaugh in his career has lost 1 time to a rookie quarterback at home. Like I said before, that was against Kenny Pickett. The Ravens, their main story is going to be their offensive transition. Lamar Jackson, of course, the second highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Got a 5-year, $262 million deal, about $180 fully guaranteed. He brought in Zay Flowers, he brought in Odell Beckham, he brought in Todd Monken, former Georgia offensive coordinator who's won the last 2 national championships. And, we have Roquan Smith, who has a $100 million deal. Patrick Queen's still there. Marlon Humphrey's going to be hurt, which is going to be big, but hopefully we get Marcus Williams back, the great safety who was making a lot of plays for us in the beginning of the year, and then got hurt about week 3 with a wrist injury and really was never the same. And I just hope that with our offensive line additions with Lindenbaum, with Ronnie Stanley, I hope that we can run the ball more effectively. We still have Dobbins, we still have Edwards, and we have Justice Hill. Like, we have a good, we have an okay 3-headed monster with Lamar in running game. And it's just something where I just trust the Ravens effectively to beat a Texan team that looks good and is starting to build up in the right direction. But it's just not enough that I feel that they can win this game. Could they cover? Maybe. If Stroud plays well enough. But also, again, it's Ohio State quarterback. How much can you expect from Ohio State quarterback? Just going to put that out there. But we'll see. Look, I have Baltimore here -10. I think, we are going to be humming. We have much more talent. We have better consistency on the field with a lot of different assets. And I feel like the Ravens will play a very effective week 1 game that will show early that the Ravens are, here to have some business and show that, we can win games and make big plays. So, that's all. Like Baltimore here -10 and Baltimore straight up. The next game, Chicago Bears over the Green Bay Packers. This is one to where, just like with Panthers, Falcons, rookie quarterback. I know Jordan Love is going into his 4th year, but this is his 2nd career start, his first official start as the full-time starter moving forward, and I just can't trust him to win this spot. Could he win? Sure, because I do think the Bears defense, it added some assets, but it didn't add enough to really put them over the top. But I do feel like with Chicago that they will be more competitive than people think. And I do think for that 7th seed in the NFC, it's going to be a 3-horse race between the Giants, the Vikings, and the Bears for that 7th seed. But I'm going to take Chicago in this game based on more experience on the quarterback, more experience from the dynamics of playmakers, and I just trust the Bears overall to Fields to make a few more dynamic plays that Love can't. And I think that Bears defense, which was one of the worst in the league, they've improved enough that I think they'll confuse Love a little bit more than they will Fields with the talent he has around him, especially getting DJ Moore. Fun fact for anybody as well, if DJ Moore, his current career receiving yards, if he was on the Bears, he'd be the all-time leading Bears wide receiver. That is a genuine fact, I know, from ProFootballReference.com. It is a genuine fact. You take DJ Moore's career receiving yards, if he had started his career with the Chicago Bears, he would be the all-time leading Bears wide receiver. That's amazing to think about, but also to be fair, Justin Fields also wants to be the first 4,000-yard passer in Bears history, or since Sid Luckman, which I don't know if he'll do that, but that shows you how bad the quarterback position has also been in Chicago for ages. So that's why I have Chicago here -1, Chicago straight up. The next game, the Denver Broncos over the Las Vegas Raiders. This is one to where it's coming down to coaching. Like, I could objectively say the Broncos starting to have a better defense, but right now with the Broncos wide offensive line injuries, wide receiver injuries, Javonte Williams coming back over running back, and Russell Wilson coming off his worst year of his career, you could, genuinely paint a picture with the Raiders. They brought in Tyree Wilson. They re-signed Max Crosby. They have Josh Jacobs back in the fold. Yeah, they lost Darren Waller for a third-round pick, but I think they'll be able to bounce back from that. And it's one of those things where, like the Raiders, they have some, good offensive line pieces. They have Jimmy Garoppolo on a good contract. And they just have looked more effective and, better in the preseason than what I've seen out of the Broncos. But, again, preseason is exactly that. It's preseason. The games don't really count. But, in this case, I am just going to trust that Sean Payton, who is, the brand new coach of the Denver Broncos after getting traded from the Saints for another second. So the Broncos really invested about 3 or 4 first-rounders and second-rounders for for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. Basically, they are hoping that Sean Payton can turn Russell Wilson into the Black Drew Brees. Which is kind of ironic because if you look at their careers, they're eerily similar. They're eerily similar in terms of their projections and confidence. The only thing I would give Russ is that Russ has at least gotten 2 Super Bowls. Drew only got the 1. Fact, but, I'm not trying to throw shade on Drew, but just a fact. Russ has done a little bit more than Drew. But in this game, it's like, when you look at these rosters, it's like, okay, I trust the Broncos defense enough. I trust, probably the Raiders offensive weapons and skill enough. But at the end of the day, when it goes to coaching, it's McDaniels versus Payton. And I'm going to trust Sean Payton to win this game because he knows what he has to do. And I think Payton and Russ will come up for the occasion and show how good they are as a duo and how good this Broncos team can be by beating a Raider team that, basically everybody at this point expects to be a very bad team in the AFC. Which is saying something where in the AFC, you could say every team has a chance to make the playoffs. The Raiders, unfortunately, are in one of those spots in the AFC to where it's a lower spot. So, but that's why I like the Denver Broncos here to win straight up. The Las Vegas Raiders plus 3.5. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the New England Patriots. The Patriots added Zeke, and that's about it. They got Christian Gonzalez, and for the first time in a very long time for Bill Belichick and the Patriots, I would say Bill Belichick could get fired at the end of this year, or he will retire. This will, I believe, be Bill Belichick's final year with the New England Patriots through one or two ways. Either he will genuinely get fired from Robert Kraft, or he will objectively retire at the end of the year regardless of what happens. I don't think Kraft would fire him in the middle of the year. I think you don't do that to Bill. Jerry didn't do that to Tom Landry. Chuck Noll retired. You don't really do that to the coaches that have that much of an impact in this, in the league. I think Bill has earned the right to either get fired at the end or retire. But I just think with this Patriots roster, it's really not that talented. Getting Zeke was nice, and getting Bill O'Brien, which was their big improvement. It's an improvement over Matt Patricia, but Bill O'Brien, fun fact that every Patriot fan knows, he's the only offensive coordinator through the whole Belichick run that did not win a Super Bowl. Charlie Weiss won a Super Bowl, McDaniels won Super Bowls, and O'Brien did. So, but is he better than Matt Patricia? Sure. And now Matt Patricia somehow got in Philadelphia, but I'm going to take Philadelphia here because I feel like, again, they are the class of the NFC. They are clearly, I think, better than every team in the NFC. But I would tell people, don't snap on the field for that pick. If the question is the Eagles or the field in the NFC, I would take the Eagles slightly. But if you said the field, I get that because of San Fran, Detroit, and everything else going on. You don't know what's going to happen. But on Tom Brady Day, which is so great for Eagle fans, the last Super Bowl that Tom Brady lost, Tom Brady Day, where the Pats are going to retire his number and do all that stuff. Tom, the Eagles have to come into town and spoil all the fun, which I bet is a real joy for Eagles fans. Could the Pats make it competitive? Sure. I think Belichick's defense has always been good against young quarterbacks, and he always seems to, in the first game, be a little more competitive, and I do think that'll be interesting. And then the Eagles just have too much talent offensively and defensively that the Pats' pass rush and turnovers and sacks, which are very good in last year, it's not going to be as effective. And then the Eagles' offensive line, which is basically still intact, they play a very clean, fundamental game, and the Eagles get a nice, comfortable win going into their next big Thursday game against the Minnesota Vikings next Thursday. Sounds like Philadelphia here at -4, and Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Miami Dolphins. This is one to where with the Bucs and Vikings, I'm going to the better quarterback. These two rosters, I think, are very even. Receivers, running backs, I think the Chargers have a better running back. But the rosters are very similar in their talents and their constructions, their strengths and weaknesses, the potential that everybody believes that they both can have. And when you have something like that, and you have Staley and McDaniel and coaches, where I'd give probably Mike McDaniel the edge. Staley has also kind of been around a little bit longer. I'm going to take Herbert over Tua in this regard. I think Justin Herbert, the highest paid quarterback in the league, is under a lot of pressure this year to prove that he was worth this money. Because for me, Justin Herbert is the perfect case of numbers against results. Nobody cares. I don't care anymore how many yards Justin Herbert throws, how many touchdowns he throws, what his completion percentage is. I know he can throw a football pretty doggone well. He can throw it far, he can throw it short. He has every record through X amount of years. Basically, 3 years. He has the most yards, touch. I get all that. But I don't give a care in the world about that anymore. Can you win football games? Because that's going to be Justin Herbert's task. Can he win actual football games? I think he will. Because I remember last year with this game, it was very similar to where Tua and Herbert were competing. And it was the question was, is Tua better than Herbert? Is Herbert better than Tua? After you watch the game, Herbert won the game by 6 points, and he looked better. And I just think it's going to be kind of that similar situation. And there's no Jalen Ramsey, of course, who had the big knee injury after trying to chase Tyreek Hill, which kind of is an impressive thing for Tyreek, kind of sad. And he's out till December, so best of luck to Ramsey getting... And they are getting J.C. Jackson back, which I think is huge. But to me, I'm going to take the Chargers to win this game based on Herbert outplaying Tua and making more plays with the weapons he has compared to Tua with his. Even though Vic Fangio, great defensive coordinator, former Broncos head coach, is not a new defensive coordinator in Miami, I do think he'll make a very good impact. But we shall see how he does. I just think the Chargers, with Staley in their mind, they really don't have to worry about a run game, which is more of Staley's weakness in the run game. So we will see about that. But I'm going to take the Chargers over the Dolphins because Herbert's a better quarterback than Tua, and that's what I'm going to go with in this game. Sounds like the Chargers are -3 and the Chargers straight up. The Seattle Seahawks over the Los Angeles Rams. I am taking the Seattle Seahawks here to win this game based on the roster construction of the Seahawks. I believe the Seahawks have a very good and talented roster, and I feel like they added very good pieces with their corners and their safeties. And I feel like with the Rams, they just lost too much talent. And I do think Cooper Kupp's injury is really big here, because if he doesn't play, that means the Rams are not really going to have that much of a receiving core going into Seattle. Because Cooper Kupp, before he got hurt, was everything to Stafford. And Stafford, after having his great moment in 21, 22, he went back to Pumpkin Stafford and, the joy of that. But I'm going to take the Seahawks here because I feel like they have a better roster. They have better, weapons around them and a more well-funded, rounded team in offense, running game, offensive line, defense. Bobby Wagner's back. They have Devon Witherspoon joining Tariq Woolen, Julian Love. They'll get Jamal Adams back. Like this team is very well constructed, and I just feel like with the Seahawks that they knew what they did last year against the Rams, where they lost the one game at home, but they won the game in Seattle. I think they know who they are, and they have the confidence in doing it. And I just think the Rams, as good as they are, they're kind of falling on the back end of their run. And after this year, I think Aaron Donald, McVay, and Stafford could all leave which would put the Rams completely in rebuild mode at that point, and they'll be fighting with the Cardinals for the horse bottom division. And if they don't get Caleb Williams, the Rams are going to be arguably next year, if it goes bad, the worst team in the NFC West. You heard it here first. But I'm going to take the Rams plus 5.5 because I just don't know if Geno can duplicate what he did, and I feel like he might make a mistake or not make a throw that keeps the Rams around this game for some odd reason. So that's why I see out here to win straight up the LA Rams plus 5.5. The next game, the final two games, the Dallas Cowboys over the New York Giants. Dallas here, based on they got Stephon Gilmore, they got Brandon Cooks, they just re-signed Terrence Steele, they have Tyron Smith. This roster is pretty much still intact. They brought Zach Martin back. Dak has had one of the highest winning percentages in the division in NFL history. Daniel Jones, I think, has never beaten Dak Prescott in a football game that he started. And I really like what the Cowboys have in this spot. I just think the problem for the Cowboys and all their fans is it's the same old Cowboys. Every year that you try to bank on the Cowboys, they will always let you down in the end in certain spots. I feel like they will always let you down in certain spots. And, again, through the regular season, and again, the Giants game, it's not going to be that important. They play the Jets in Dallas next week. That's a big moment for the Cowboys due to their history with Rodgers and the Jets themselves. That I feel like that's going to be more of those, accident moments waiting to happen. The Giants, they routinely kick the Giants rear ends every year. So I feel pretty confident in that. Even though for the Giants, they brought everybody back and said the Giants are going to be the 7th seed in the postseason. I'd accept that. I think it's going to be the Vikings. I'd probably have the Giants at the 9 right now, based on what I would believe in the Bears' potential. But, that's like Dallas here minus 3.5 and Dallas straight up. And lastly, the Buffalo Bills over the New York Jets. I'm going to take Josh Allen and the Bills based on the fact that I like the Bills roster. I know that they're not going to have Von Miller, and I get that, but I like what the Bills have, and I trust it. Yeah, and they lost some defensive assets, and the Bills, I think, for the first time in a couple of years, they're in the they're in the Alfred spot of the AFC. They're not the Chiefs, and they're not the Bengals. So for the first time in a while, could the Bills play a little bit more relaxed because there's not the pressure of the world on them? Like, I don't think anybody going into this year, I had Josh Allen as my MVP or something like that. I don't think they're under that much pressure this year. Like, it's kind of like where, they're kind of in that indifferent stage, and you could argue that could be a good thing. That people aren't going to care what Buffalo does for the first 17 weeks of the year until they get to the postseason. You could say that sucks. You should want to care. But it's like, yeah, but I think the Bills, they'll play more relaxed. I think they have a lot more continuity, and I don't think with the Jets, the Jets, they have all this talent, and they have all this stuff, and I do think they will be a playoff team. I'm not going to go as far as like Nick Wright and say they're going to be worse than the AFC East. Like, I do think the Jets will be a playoff team. The Super Bowl, anybody that has them in the Super Bowl, they're just downright crazy because I've watched Aaron Rodgers since 2011 for over 10 years. The band can't get you to a Super Bowl. You just can't. I don't think his Jets roster, has a defense, sure, but his history with choking games, AFC title games, I could totally see that, coming in just because he changed conferences. But I'm taking the Bills here. Trust the continuity. Trust the staff. I just think Josh Allen outplays Rodgers just by a bit here in this game. Would I be surprised at all if the Jets won? No, because they have, I think, a better, more confident structure, and they have all their defensive pieces. So if Rodgers plays up to his potential, then that's going to be scary because, that can match Allen, if not play better than Allen, which will put everybody in the AFC on alert for the Jets. I just don't think that happens. I think the Bills get a nice, good, competitive win against a quality opponent, and the Bills move up a bit while the Jets, I think look great in defeat. They'll have a great defeat of a pretty L instead of an ugly win. The Bills will get an ugly win while the Jets get a pretty L. I think everybody will take what they want out of that after this game. So that's like Buffalo minus 2.5 and Buffalo straight up. So that is it. So thank you all for watching and viewing my predictions for this week. Make sure to like, comment, rate, and subscribe on all the videos. And good luck to all players, fantasy players, fellow prognosticators. And until next week, for my Week 2 predictions, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Until next time, everybody, so long.